Morning, everyone. Welcome to the whole meeting this morning. We'll have a public comment for this meeting at the end of the meeting. And we have some presentations this morning and some updates. So with all that being said, when we get started, I'll call the meeting to order and we'll have a roll call by Matt Perfect.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Bargo.
Here.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Here.
Commissioner Booth.
Here.
Commissioner Cook.
Here.
Thank you. You have quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you, man. New business, that's right.
Chairman, I'd like to add August financials on the agenda.
On the financials, you want to put it on the finance?
Any place that would pleasure the board. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I've got a couple things I'd like to add. I want to add the friend of the court. Let's address the board real quick. Shouldn't take long. I'm gonna put it under new business between one and two if I can. And then under old business, I want to put them in active evaluation and control of leadership. So with that, we get started with the new business presentation update of implementing Public Act 233 for Michigan Counties, Madeline Federal Government Affairs.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Thank you for having me today. My name is Madeline Feda. I'm a Governmental Affairs Associate from the Michigan Association of Counties. I specialize in our environmental policy as well as transportation and general government. So I am here today to talk about Public Act 233. Before I get started, I'd like to start with just a quick disclaimer that this is not legal advice. We recommend that every community speak with their attorneys and their planning experts before making any final decisions. But so, what is Public Act 233? Essentially, what it does is it creates a path for solar and wind developers to circumvent local governments and get their large-scale projects approved by the state. And the state in this case is the Michigan Public Service Commission. So, MAC did oppose this legislation from introduction. We fought very hard to maintain local control. We also supported that ballot initiative to repeal the law, but unfortunately that did not gather enough signatures. So here we are today. The effective date for the new law is quickly approaching. It is November 29th of 2024. And unfortunately, parts of the law still remain murky. The way it was written, there are gray areas, there are points of contention still. So the Public Service Commission has been tasked with creating rules for the practical implementation of the new law. So they have released batches of recommendations throughout the summer. There's been about 5 or 6 of them. MAC has provided feedback on some of them. The final rules are expected either late this month or early next month. So far, there are 2 key takeaways from those recommendations that I'd like to highlight for you today. The first is that the Public Service Commission recommends that only local units of government with zoning jurisdiction need an ordinance. So if the county does not handle zoning on behalf of any of their other municipalities, they do not need to adopt an ordinance. The second takeaway is that the PSC is suggesting that they really want locals and developers to work together. They want to be a last resort. This is a direct quote from their recommendations. When a local ordinance does not meet the definition of a compatible renewable energy ordinance, following the affected local units, citing process is still encouraged in areas that have workable ordinances. So, what is a compatible ordinance? What is a workable ordinance? I will go over both of those options for you today. So a compatible renewable energy ordinance, we are calling a CREO, C-R-E-O. So what is a CREO? The law says that a CREO can be no more restrictive than the provisions outlined in section 226.8 of the Act. So 226.8 is exactly just setback distance, fencing height, panel height, turbine height. It's those very specific metrics and nothing else. It's still unclear whether a local unit can add any additional requirements like landscaping to those compatible renewable energy ordinances. So, what are the benefits of a community choosing the CREO path? You're guaranteed to go through the local process. It's really the easiest path for developers. So if you're a community that maybe wants to attract these types of projects and wants developers to come to their area, this is the path for you. The state has created a grant fund called the Renewable Ready Communities Award Fund. So if you do adopt a CREO, you're eligible for $5,000 per megawatt with a maximum of $3 million through that state fund. So that's another benefit of the CREO path. The cons of the CREO path, however, this is the most limited path. It allows for the least local input. And there are penalties if you have a CREO and you deny a project that meets the standards, you can lose your ability to ever have CREO status again. So I have heard from several municipal attorneys so far that very few communities are considering the CREO path. More communities are considering the workable ordinance. So what is a workable ordinance? A workable ordinance is an ordinance that may be more restrictive than the standards set forth in the Act, but that is still reasonable, that a developer may still find attractive. There are two really big reasons why a developer would prefer to go through the locals rather than the MPSC, and those are time and money. If they go through the PSC, it's going to cost them much more money, and the approval time is about a year. So if they can work with a local unit of government, they can save themselves months of waiting around. So we know that some communities already have workable ordinances because we know there are some large-scale projects successfully up and running in the state. So the pros of the workable ordinance are that this allows the most community input. It allows you to tailor your ordinance to the needs of your community. You're maintaining that local control. You can still be eligible for that Renewable Ready Communities Award, the $5,000 per megawatt, if your ordinance is still reasonable. The cons of this path, though, is that it's a gamble, whether or not a developer is going to think what you guys came up with is reasonable. There's no guarantee that they will not go around you to the PSC with this path. Lastly, there is one other option. The other option is to not adopt any ordinance, wipe your hands clean of the problem, and just defer to the PSC on all projects. If you take this route, the pros are that you do get $2,000 per megawatt in a host community agreement. You would get some intervener funds, but it's kind of unclear how those can be used and if unexpended funds need to be returned at the end. The cons are you have no say in what's going on in your community. I do want to plug the University of Michigan has really been leading the charge on disseminating this information to local communities. They have created a sample CREO and they have assembled a ton of information on workable ordinances, what's already working in the state. So they're a great point of reference for any materials you may need. So I know that was a lot and that was kind of quick, but I'd be more than happy to take questions from the board.
So the bottom line is then we as a county board here, we don't have to do anything really. It's all up to the locals.
If I don't believe Tuscola County, you guys do not zone on behalf of any of your municipalities, do you? Then no, you do not need to take any action to adopt anything. But if your locals want to seek your input, we'll at least arm you with the information you need.
Yeah, no, we have questions. Mr. Wood, you have questions?
Chairman, go ahead and ask some questions.
Yeah.
Madeline, so they have the three options under the CREO, and the most popular, the recommended one, not on legal basis recommendation, but is the workable. Tuscola County has 24 townships, and I don't know if any of the board, we've had this discussion, what exactly what path they're taking. I only know of one township in the district. So without any involvement of the county, what about the $5,000, was it per megawatt?
Mm-hmm.
Is that to the zoning, like the township? Does the county receive any funding whatsoever, or is it basically townships?
I believe it goes, to the zoning authority.
Okay. And in terms of the meeting requirements, if you read that, and I know it's been in the podcast, there's some question on, do they only have to meet with the zoning, like the township, or do they have to meet with the township, the village, the city, the county? Has there been any clarity on that?
So there has been some contention in their recommendations because the way they have defined affected local unit of government is kind of different in different places. So where it says that a meeting must happen with each affected local unit of government, that does include the county. They did include a meeting with the county officials on that one. But when it comes to who needs an ordinance, it still says each affected local unit of government, but they defined that one as just the zoning authority. And so yes, for meeting requirements, the county would still be looped in on that stuff.
As well as cities and villages, and
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah.
In terms of the landowners, and I know there's existing leases within land ownership, and I know there's a lot of activity right now behind the scenes in the leasing aspects from solar. I don't see it as wind as much at the moment, but with that said, one of the concerns, and I don't know if this has been discussed or if you had any questions, is the opt-outs in a township. So they're surrounded by panels or turbines or where they weren't before, because now it's lifted the veil where the townships can't zone out any renewable energy. Is there any, been any discussion on compelling those who wish to opt out forcibly to opt in? Because typically where that will occur is where they're landlocked on both sides of renewable energy sources, and the distribution path has to be through around their property or through it. And if they refuse to go through it, has there been any discussion on how that would be handled?
Not that I know of. There are, specific clauses in the law that say there is absolutely no eminent domain in any shape or form as part of this. But no, I don't have a good answer for that question.
Okay, well, I understand that because it goes around quite frequently, rurally. Also on the solar, and I don't have this quite clear, but there was some type of caveat about 3,000 something. To have solar, you must have so many acres in solar, can you reflect on that, or is that just?
The standards for what a large scale project is 50 megawatts of solar, 100 megawatts of wind, and 50 megawatts of solar, I believe, is about 300 acres. Is that?
I think that's where we're going in terms of you'd have to have at least 300 acres of solar committed for a project. That's the minimum.
To fall under this law, yes.
And if you didn't have 300 acres, of course, it could be spatial. Well, that could be spatial. In other words, it just led me to, so how close does that 300 acres have to be? Can it be broken up into 100-acre parcels? Could it be 50? How does that come on?
I don't know the metrics on that, but I do know that it doesn't need to be contiguous. It can be spread out across different lots, but I do not know how close they technically have to be.
And that just leads into the earlier question that was very preemptive, should have been after this, and that is the transmission lines, if they are spatial, just like they did with the wind, they get into difficulties with those who do not want any transmission lines through their land. More to come, I'm sure. So what would be the most, the top 3 issues that you get asked, the top 3 questions related to PA 233 and the November implementation? What comes to mind?
There's still a lingering question of whether or not there will be cleanup legislation, because there is so much gray area that even these rules won't properly clarify. So there's been discussion of later this fall, there may be being a package to clean up some of it, but that's very unclear. There are no bill sponsors who've come forward and said they're willing to make these changes. It might still be too contentious. I think a lot of people just want to know what other communities are thinking, where everyone's head's at. And I've been meeting regularly. There's a group of that U of M staff and municipal attorneys, and we've all kind of been comparing notes throughout this process. And it does seem that workable ordinance is the path that most communities are considering. There have been questions about whether the ballot initiative is going to come back around, and we believe it will at some point, maybe not in 2025, but in 2026. So yeah, I mean, the future on this whole legislation is still just very gray and up in the air.
Man, one of the shocks I think the public is going to have, I mean, not the metropolitan, but certainly from the rural areas, is the setbacks have really been relaxed compared to what they were typically in a township ordinance. And I'm thinking, you're probably not familiar with Elkton, Michigan, but there's an example of what happened, and it's just 50 feet from the edge of the road right away. That's, you know what a turbine looks like. 50 feet inside of a road right away is that's pretty close. And 300 feet from the point of the outer wall of an occupied community building. Unbelievable in terms of all it's been with noise and all kinds of flickers and whatever. That's going to be a rude awakening, obviously, because when the general public really doesn't, for the world, really don't have a handle on this, because we don't, basically. Another question comes in the line of the drain commissioner and the road commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
They're principals in this because they have to put in all the infrastructure for the, especially for the turbines. We saw what type of roads they had to put in. In terms of this act and the questions you've been answering, what are the questions that they should be asking? Vis-a-vis our local road commission, our local drain commission, you're going to be very much involved in it, but you don't hear much about it from them or reading the act. What are your thoughts?
So that's also something that's kind of unclear at the moment. The law says that they need to consult their drain commissioners and their road commissioners, but what does consult truly mean? Does it mean that they just have to have a meeting with them, or does it mean that they have to follow certain plans of theirs? So that's kind of unclear. I will say the Drain Commissioners Association has been more engaged than the Road Commissioners Association. I think they have big concerns about runoff into their culverts and their drainways, any industrial runoff. By installing that many panels and turbines, I mean, it changes the composition of the drain field entirely. So I don't have a good answer for you, but in those communities that do have these large scale projects, see how those drain commissioners were engaged in the process. I can speak more closely with those organizations. Dina Bosworth in our office, works very closely with the drain commissioners. So I can get some more information put together on where their heads should be at on this.
All right, and the setbacks that I was quoting was the solar.
Yeah.
So even the solar panel and the height of them and how close they are. I was looking for the turbines, and I haven't found it on what was provided us this morning, but I have looked at it in the past. So I want to make it clear I wasn't referring to the turbine setback, I was referring to the solar panel. And I think, do you know offhand what the turbine setbacks are?
I want to say they're both 300. I don't know off the top of my head, but I will say that is a point where they might be more drawn to a workable ordinance, because a community could put in their ordinance 150 feet, 100 feet. So that might be compelling for a developer to work with a local in a circumstance like that.
I would think they'd want to increase it, not reduce it.
I do know some existing ordinances. I want to say specifically Clinton County. I think their setback distance is less than 300. But then their decibel levels are more restrictive, and it's only 45 instead of 55. So these are the variances that are important in a workable ordinance.
And that's for both? You're referring to both solar and wind? Like Clinton County, that's what they're saying?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's pretty shy. Height versus, closeness. Chairman, that's all the questions I have at the moment.
There's a lot of good questions, answered a lot of stuff, cleared up a lot of stuff too, Commissioner. Anybody else has any more questions?
I just heard, listening and heard about the drain. Did you want me to comment on that at all, how we handle it?
You come to the podium, Drake.
If you want me to, fine. If not, I don't have to. That's how we're handling it right now.
President Boyd,
Yeah.
come on up here.
I'm the drain commissioner for Tuscola County, and I'll just tell you how we handled these in the past with when we did the solar farms. Each drainage district they affected, we did an agreement with the solar company, whoever it was, whether it was Nextera or Consumer, and we're handling the same process with the solar panels. We've had one that was going to come in. We started the agreement with them, then they backed off. We're also doing it with the battery storage facilities too. They're going to make them go through a stormwater plan because of not only the runoff, but how they're going to contain any contaminants. Because they're going to be putting these large lithium batteries. I think there's one right now focused by Fairgrove right now. And they were gonna put a solar farm there, they backed off that, now they're gonna put battery storage there. But both those we're concerned with not only the runoff, but the quality of the water too. And we've been working with Eagle on that too, to try to make sure we do that. So I just wanted to let you know that those agreements are happening, but we do one with each, whatever drainage district they're in, we do the agreement with the drainage district. So,
Now, Bob, if they don't agree with how you want, can they bypass you then and go right to the,
There's stormwater laws they have to follow, so in the township, the Fairgrove Township has right in their ordinance that the stormwater plan has to be reviewed by the Drain Commission. So I think right now they're abiding by that because they've already contacted us. They know the Fairgrove Township told them they had to contact us. So I think as long as the township directs that, now they can opt out of it. The township can say, we don't want a stormwater plan, but then you're deferring it to technically the building codes because they also do stormwater plans too. But it depends on they can also do the review form too if they want. But most of the townships have that option to have the drain off. And usually the ones I've been talking throughout the state, the drain office is doing the review of it. So.
Okay.
So I just wanted to I just heard that in talking about that. I just wanted to make sure you understood we are doing that process right now.
so far, nothing's changed with your process?
No, nothing's changed with the process. We're not running into any problems with them. I mean, we're just, they're asking us, what do we need to do to get through this? And I think they're willing to work with us.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Chairman, I have another question for Madeline.
Yes.
if I may.
Yes.
Madeline, I did find it in what was presented, it just had, it's sort of buried. So they are the setbacks and light, they're all the same. Interesting enough on the turbines, and this has been a topic of, again, if you've been around Elkton, it makes you wonder, because that gives you a visual word picture of what I'm going to talk about. In the past, there was a great deal of discussion and concern for safety in the distance from a turbine. And at 50 feet, this was obviously overlooked for consciously or unconsciously. 50 feet from, or 300 feet, but 50 feet from a road. There were studies done in the past that showed that if there was a turbine malfunction, blade malfunction, spin off, ice spin off, break off, 50 feet was not the, outside the 51st foot, you were not safe. It appears that that was set aside, because these turbines are quite tall, as you know, and let alone 300 feet would be, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not a lot. Depends on the speed of the blade. But I just wanted to bring that up in terms of the safety function. Yeah, safety factor, doesn't seem like it was applied here. So has there been any discussion on that topic at all?
Not specifically, but I mean, that's great to highlight, and it's something to consider if these cleanup bills happen later down the road.
I would appreciate that if that was at least reviewed and perhaps included, because that could be, as these populate, and obviously this is a population mechanism in rural areas, regardless of prime farmland, even though it's hard to believe that they're going to put these on prime farmland, but that would be certainly a consideration for the safety, because there will be, I project it, based on the amount that I hear that probably would go in. I'm not so concerned with solar, of course. I don't know what they do, if they explode or not, but the turbines definitely are a concern. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Any more questions? We appreciate you coming on this morning and giving us a heads up. I think you shed a lot of light on what we were discussing here. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
Very much. All right, good questions. Move on to number 2 on the business. We're in the front of the court. Gil?
Morning, everyone. Sheila Long, Court Administrator. I'm here this morning because in front of the court, as you know, that budget's struggling a little bit. We've already eliminated our referee position with the court to try to save some money. We do have an employee who submitted a few weeks ago her notice to terminate her employment with us effective last Friday. So at this time, what I'm asking for the board to approve is, we're not gonna fill that position at this time anyway. And what we've done is, we just delegated her duties and responsibilities amongst others in her office, or in that office. Again, trying to help out that budget. So what I'm here for today is we have an individual who is currently her position is a services specialist, and she's at $19.55 an hour. And I'm just asking that her hourly rate be increased to $21.74 per hour, and that will put her in the same rate of pay as our enforcement specialist in that office and our case manager specialist positions in that office.
Any questions for Sheila?
This will come right out of their budget, right?
Yep, so we won't fill that full-time position, but we just want that one employee who is at a lower rate than the others to be brought up to the same rate as the others in that office. And then what we've taken with that full-time position is, right now, we're trying to do it by just delegating those responsibilities amongst the office to try to bear that load and try to help that budget out by not filling that full-time position.
So basically, you're down two people.
Pardon?
Basically, you would down two people.
Yeah, we'll be down the referee, and then it'll be down this person that submitted their notice to us. So we'll be down two full-time people then for that budget, so.
Put a motion together for Thursday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on. Presentation to School County Health Department 2022-23 annual report. Amanda Irvin. Good morning.
Board, I'm here to bring you the annual report of 2022-2023. Can you bring this slide back?
I was prepared, you didn't send me a slide that.
Unless someone's in.
That, annual report, I'm sure.
Thank you. All right. All right, obviously, this is my team. We have, obviously, nurse administration, environmental health director, and tech director, a financial director, and obviously the VA director. Next slide, please. Our table of contents, our programs are divided into nurse division, environmental health division, technical care division, and administration, admin. Next slide, please. Obviously, my goal for 22-23 was to rebuild our staff and to review our policy and strategic plan within the health department. Next slide. We ended up partnering with the School County Preventive Recovery Coalition, and we did a resource room. This resource area was a sitting area of the Veterans Affairs, but now that we got additional space, Suite A, we took the ability to move it into a support room for all resources. We have the vending machine there that has the Narcan, the bacteria bags, condoms, and we have a lot of free items that give masks away, COVID testing when available, lock boxes, resources. We go into domestic violence, to human development, to any type of resources that we have in our community. We handed over 2,484 condoms within this machine alone. People like the privacy, it is quite convenient for them. We do have a sharp sensory box outside our location that we worked with the coalition to help give away any kind of needles. Next slide. So our nursing division, they focused on the rebuilding of our programs. Since COVID has took us a little slight off our path, moving for immunizations, WIC, communicable disease, hearing and vision. We got back into the schools, started working with them. We increased our visits at Vassar Out Clinic and our clinics in Cass City. Next slide. So breastfeeding is one of our programs that we offer to our community. We've served over 1,286 people. What does that mean for us? We've grown $887,926.63 of food benefit for our community alone, which is nearly $1 million this program has brought to us, which is a huge benefit for our community. We've also did Project Fresh and handed out over 580 of them. And we did 80% registration rent or breastfeeding. Next slide, please. Preventive disease and promotion of health. This is our family planning, this is our special children, this is our hearing vision, immunization, and STIs and HIV programs. These are mostly our mandated programs from the state. We've done over 42 pregnancy tests, 117 STI testing, 8 rapid HIV tests, and 4 venous tests for HIV. Here in Vision, we've served over almost 2,500 in vision and 1,700 in hearing, those are the children in our schools. Immunizations, we handed out over 7,743 immunizations within the year, and we served 251 special children's needs. Next slide, please. Communicable disease. Obviously, last year we were the first in the state to have swine flu, unfortunately. But the good thing is we worked very diligently with the county's fair community, and they were wonderful to work with. I greatly appreciate them and all that they've done with us. We're working with them. We had 82 people in monitoring. No huge severe cases, just the pig. So I'm giving kudos to that. That was a great outcome for us. Animal bites, this has been quite a challenge with us. People believe that if an animal has rabies to come see us, it's only with the human contact part of it. Makes the animal control work done. Greatly appreciate them very much. We'll work with them hand in hand, especially when it comes to dog bites. Any questions on this slide? Maternal infant health. We went over it, we did actually 284 home visits. And what we do with this program is we go in and we look at the needs and assessments of the parents, the children. This is safe sleep, it's one of our main components. We want to give out pack and plays, we want to give safe sleep snacks, making sure the children have a safe place to sleep, make sure that the resources need. This is kind of like a case management program with the mom and the infant itself. Next slide. Community outsource and research, safety outreach. So what we do here is we normally go out and we get in the community and we promote any kind of illnesses that we see are occurring, COVID, for example, emergency preparation, anything that we feel that we need to go. We worked with hand in hand with Steve Anderson on that. Personal training, we trained over 66 people, that's CPR, and those type of trainings when it comes to that. Training courses, 6 of our employees have done 6 of the classes through the state. And that's all I have on that. This is more outreach source and things that we follow with Facebook, Instagram. Environmental health. We have over 140 fixed service establishments. We provide 220 inspections. Temp foods have increased within the years. We have 82 right now currently that we've done. Well permits, we've overdone 87 of them. Environmental quality, we did 20 campsites, 7 swimming pools. Indoor out quality was 2. We did some radon testing, which we investigated 2. We did body art, which is our tattoo, which is 5. Any questions on that? Oh, sorry, next slide again. I'm jumping ahead again. Veterans Affairs. So we have currently 3,261 vets in our current population. We served over 300 of them with transportation, and we did 1,244 visits. Submitted 731 claims to indicate which we insured $94,000 of insurance claims and pensions. We've increased it to a total of $53,456,000 total income that we gave into our community. We gave burial grants over 9,000. Next slide.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
Just looking at the VA, You're moving right along, so it's hard to.
I'm sorry.
See, look, we read
I
long.
was moving right along. I was looking at, I know Mark, and Mark does a fantastic job. I was just curious, there's 3,261 veterans identified, but only 1,424, which is about 44%. What are some of this, you would think it'd be more, I mean, but what is Mark experiencing in that area that seems to be some obstacles he has to overcome with getting people?
So when a soldier now gets out of the Army, they already get rated through the VA. So prior Gulf War, them kind of veterans already do not get assessed. So now we have the newer generation coming out and just getting discharged, which are already getting their VA compensation automatically. But the ones that are not already in the VA system is the ones that we are trying to reach.
So it's the older group.
Yes, unless the newer generation that already got discharged wants to do an upgrade or do a new claim disorder.
So in other words, what from the Gulf War, I'm not sure which one, they're automatically enrolled versus in the past you had to
Yes,
enroll yourself.
yes.
Well, you would think it'd be even more compelling for the older generation to take advantage.
We do quite a bit of advertising, they go out to vet they do a lot of ceremonies, they're bringing the moving wall in. We try to get out and engage them, but we can't make them come to the office.
Now, are you talking like automatically enrolled in the VA, like the VA hospital or?
No, VA benefits,
VA benefits?
Veterans Affairs benefits, yes.
Because I know I tried to enroll a while back, and there was a lot of red tape that I had to go through. Well, I
Yes,
just quit doing it. My
Yes.
dad was World War II veteran, he enrolled, but I went over there and there was a lot of red tape, income and non-income and this and that. I gave up on it. Now it can be different today.
oh,
Mark's gonna do with me if there's anything to put on there,
Yes.
soon, but yeah, there's a lot of red tape to it.
So Chair, I got a question for him. Under the statistics, you got veteran population 3261. You have total expenditures $53,456,000.
that's expenditures. That is the total status of probably all their health benefits, all their family benefits, their actual income benefits that they get, all their stipends that they receive.
That's a big chunk of change.
Yes,
53 million.
yes,
Oh.
just for our county.
Chair, I have another question.
Yes.
I just want to back up the slide, but it's communicable disease. As you're doing this, you talk about animal bites, and that seems to be
Yes,
significant and on the rise, and we can understand that based on what feedback we've been getting. But overall, looking at these different groups, is your assessment that Tuscola County is doing quite well? Because other than influenza and
we are. Even when you look back at our STIs or HRV testing, it is quite low. So, I mean, unless the concerns are going to somewhere else and seeing their caseload going somewhere else, because they are authorized to go to a different county, they're reported to us. So no matter what we see the actual numbers. And yes, I am quite pleased with our numbers right now. I mean, obviously you can see COVID was quite high, but we were still doing the case investigation, which we're making all the calls. But unfortunately, that is no longer no more. So we moved on with that, so that we treat the COVID virus as the flu now, so that's how it will be reported.
I see.
We'll not be reported separately anymore.
that's my next question.
Yep,
Relatively speaking, is the incentive to come to the health department because it's less expensive than private primary care?
yes, we do have a scaling scale that we look at their income. We did have some kind of grant money for COVID and measles testing for a while, depending on the rise. But yes, our family planning is a no fee service.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions about right here? Move on.
Financial highlights. We are funded 69% from federal and state. Obviously, the fees are 4%, the county appropriation is 19%, charges for service is 8%. Most of our expenses is sailor and French. Our services are quite high. We have done a lot of reduction in supplies, intangible items, contractual, which is normally personnel, which is 11%. County rent is 3%. Advertisement and insurance is 3%, and the capital outlay is 1%. And debt, obviously, is 4%. Any questions on that, on our financials? And that is my annual report for 22-23. Any questions? Quick, to the point. I'm not trying to make it. We're doing very well. And I must say, my staff is excelling very well. I cannot do it without them. I will always give my staff the credit. I'm just their busy bee that does the paperwork.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm lagging a little bit, but, you know, I was thinking of the wastewater, I just walked down into it. And the sewer permits, and with, I just had an update at Lansing over last Friday. And what may or may not happen with the inspection, and then there are two, you know, there's a 2-seat majority, they're having a hard time getting into the prevailing party in the vote right now. There's a lot of dynamics going on.
They're on, I believe, a
But by, depending what happens in November, this could come in real fast, depending who prevails. So how, I was just looking at the number you do, thinking of the residents of Tuscola County. What are your thoughts?
So, yeah, wait for that. I was waiting for that one.
You know what? I don't know.
Amendment 8, they're on Amendment 8, and we never seen even Amendment 5, 6, or 7. They are not including the health departments, or MIHA, which is the Michigan Environmental Health Organization, which includes all the environmental directors from the health departments. They're kind of keeping this under lock and key, I believe. I've known that they tried pushing this before. I do believe that we do need to monitor our waters. I would like to see a bill of sales first, maybe at the beginning, not to mandate people to get inspections. I am concerned for my staff because I don't want to mandate them to go on properties to do services and then charge our community for those services. It's going to be ugly, but I would have to hire staff. And we are already looking at moving forward on preparing to do this.
So within the health department, group or general, so to speak, general feeling is that it's more than 60% probability, and it's inching up in the fact that it's being done very secretively, which is obviously
Yes.
a reason. Could have an
Well,
immediate impact.
yeah, I think, you know, why they're going it secretly is because the people they thought were gonna be on board are not on board.
Yes.
And so they got the pushback from the health department, and even the EO was pushing back
Yes.
on it, so I'm saying, wait, this is crazy. So I think that's why they've kind of shut down communication with the locals.
I agree, and they've not included Eagle either. And it's unfounded that why would you not include your own organizations? I think that some of the amendments as I read, them changing it, they so far by water, you gotta be so near water to get the first inspections. I know it's 5 years to inspect every subject field in your county. I think they've changed it to 8 years now. So I think they're amending it to make it more appeasing for everyone to vote on. That is my opinion. But financially, I don't know how Michigan
How that
is going to
works.
afford that.
Yeah.
I hate to say that that's what's gonna boil down to, is how we can afford it.
I mean, that's what Gary was saying in the meeting, how much it was gonna cost.
Oh, yes.
I mean, we couldn't afford that.
We kind of roughly did some numbers. We have roughly a little 12,000 subject fields roughly in our county. I mean, and you gotta do them in 8 years, that's probably 2 people full time. And then legal fees, because people aren't gonna let us on their property, and it's gonna kill the ugly.
Well, when it comes to lame duck, anything's,
What do you think?
anything, they're gonna, so I can see why you're preparing, it's hard to put your mind around.
Yes, and we gotta understand the why. I think that if I'm going to knock on one of our residentials in our county and say, hey, I need an inspector, I need to explain the why. And if they're not gonna give me the why, then how am I gonna do my job diligently to their benefit? So.
And the last question, because of the COVID-19, we've witnessed a large amount of restaurants scaling back to closing. I see there's 140 food establishments. Have you seen the inspections declining, obviously? No?
No, actually, they're increasing. I mean, this one, Big Boy's what was closed for a year, we already got somebody in it. I mean, as fast as they closed, they're reopening some of the owners, good luck, entrepreneurs in our county, which I'm glad to see.
All right, interesting.
But, and, temporary food trucks are actually in an increase too,
Mhm.
so.
Okay, any more questions for Amanda on her annual report? If not, let's move on to consider approval.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Is
yes,
that matter going to be placed on the consent agenda?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is that agreeable, all commissioners?
Yes.
Great, thank
I'm
you very
sorry,
much.
I'm
That's
sorry.
it. Thank you, Chairman.
Consideration for approving the 2024 amendments to the bylaws of the Tuscola County Health Department, Madam
Sorry. Can you bring up the, yes. So, like I said, 22, 23, I dived in, looked into our processes and our procedures within the health department, and we reviewed our bylaws. And there are several changes that we would like to make. Under the quorum, we added, and can you bring up the other one, please? There was three of them, I think I had them highlighted. The first one, should I bring up the first one? Up. Yes. Everything in blue is what we would like to change. Under the quorum part, section 2, we would like to add that majority of the vote of members of the health board who are present and meetings shall have significant health board actions. Right now, the quorum says it's a majority appointed and served, but not present. The second one that we would like to make the change to is, we would like that if they're going to be absent, that they report to the health department staff prior to scheduled meeting. This is the fact that if we don't have enough people to quorum, I'd like to let everybody know that we are unable to have a meeting. I think this is a courtesy for all of our board members. And then, we would like to say, instead of reporting annual disclosures, that they need to, with any kind of conflict of interest, that they can do it as they arise, instead of looking at them every year. Normally, we don't have a lot of that, it's just, so therefore, there's no point in reviewing it every year, just doing them as they arise. And those are all the changes I have. And then any questions?
Any questions from the board on the changes? CA that?
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
I
guys.
think man's doing a great job out there. I'm real pleased with what we've
Thank
done.
you.
for the position. Move on to number 4 on every business. Consideration for approving the third-party services agreement, TPA, with Human Development Commission. Debbie Baggage.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
As the fiscal personnel analyst, I would like to ask for consideration of the third-party services agreement to be with the Human Development Commission, and hoping that you received a copy in the packet and have had time to review it. Do you have any questions?
This is something we do all the time, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Is this something we do all the time?
When there is a, we've done this with them when we had the Chill Grant with them previously. And they have, are already providing services for other counties, like Sanilac and Lapeer. They've been doing it for over 30 years. So they're very, very familiar with all of the
protocols and the reports that have to be submitted, getting applications for the housing improvements, inspections, the environmental services.
It's a requirement of the grantor for this grant to have a third party administrator.
Chair, will see that.
So, yeah, see that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consideration for approval to purchase communications equipment from Homeland Security Grant, Steve Anderson, Emergency Manager.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Steve.
I just need approval for a purchase request for mobile radios for H-Town and Kingston. The total project cost is $19,131.54. This is one of the Homeland Security projects, 100% reimbursed once we make the purchase.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Steve, is it just one officer engaged on one?
Yes,
Is
yep.
that how?
Chair, will see that.
See that?
I have a question first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does everybody have a radio now?
So these are going to be new radios replacing the original radios that we moved into the state system back in 2007. So they're replacing outdated technology.
So everybody can have a radio.
Yes, as far as these two departments, yes.
CIA?
See that?
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Number 6, consideration for approving the application for the 2025 survey and ground grant. Can't quite something, remodeling grant, Hoppenberger Control Administrator.
So the state of Michigan makes money available to all the counties in Michigan. This is their 2025 program. The mechanics of applying for this grant have changed. It used to be just paper and pen. Now it's going to be online. For 24, the amount is $60,719. For 25, it's going to be $69,529. The advisor on this program is Michael Yates, who's been doing this for years. I need him to help me with how we're going to distribute the cost of this. I'm looking for input from him. So it's $9,000 increase over the prior year.
So we had action on this? Now, or you want
I
to wait?
don't know if it's gonna be ready for Thursday because I need Michael's input on that. So, maybe as early as Thursday, but
Okay, so right now we just, you're making us whoever Thursday, we'll have an update out.
right.
Any questions for Neil?
I do, Chairman. Is it's increasing by 9,000. What's been budgeted? In other words, what's been allocated in the budget to cover the extra 9? You kind of pull it from.
Well, it's a reimbursement type program, so whatever cost we incur up to that $69,000, we'll get the whole $69,000.
That's a good. Thank you.
Move on to number 7, consideration of glass recycling proposal for Recycle Services of Mike Miller, Director of Recycling.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Mike.
I met this company, Recycle Services, at our last MRC conference. They are out of Ohio. They do obviously glass recycling, that is their main business. They have sent us for a 5-year proposal. I'd like to go with them because our current glass company, who is our glass recyclers out of Dearborn, only accepts clear glass bottles and jars from us now. This company will accept all food beverage. It doesn't matter if it's clear, blue, green, brown, they'll take it. And the other thing that we run into quite often that we don't have an outlet for is window glass. They will take window glass. Obviously, the frame can't go with it, but that will be beneficial to us too. It will save us a little bit of money. We spend about $250 to $500 a year right now to have our glass recycled. So they won't charge us anything to do it. It's not a large savings, but it is something. If you are agreeable to this, they will write an agreement. And when I have that, I'll bring it back for your approval.
Go ahead and get the agreement.
I'll support that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Number 8, consideration of criminal area approval for 2025 staffing plan position budget. Shelley Lutz.
Good morning.
Good morning, Shelley.
This is something that Neil asked me to prepare. It's something new in BSNA Human Resources that we're still learning a little bit about. And what this is it takes a snapshot of basically the departments and what they currently have in them as far as employee counts. So I'm not sure, Neil, is there anything more you wanted me to?
So what I'm used to with the budgeting process, because maybe 50 to 60% of our costs are personnel related, salaries, wages, payroll taxes, retirement, health insurance. It's nice to get up front, lesson from the board of commissioners, the governing body. Here's preliminary, what our staffing. So we have the human resource module from BSNA to keep track of this. There's their first position budget, so we want to fully utilize this. So I asked Shelley to put this together. The chicken scratches on there are full-time equivalents, and then that is our FTE by the department.
This is a snapshot as of last week.
Mr. Chair, there's a question. Have you got with other departments, on how they feel about or where they're at on this?
Part of the budgeting process is for me to meet with the fund or program manager, and this will be part of the discussion.
Chair, I have a question. Neil, how does this include, much like we witnessed this morning where an FTE is resigned and it's not going to be immediately filled, how is that reflected in here? Is it a placeholder or is it like part of the 29 in the unified court? Will it be 28 now or will it just stay at 29 based on position?
Well, that would be a discussion item. So if you believe that you want to hold this position, then it'll be in the column total, and then as we report on this, the fill, so we're not being filled, no, we'll be reporting.
I think that answered it.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could comment on
Yeah,
that.
because
So this was a snapshot as of last week. So to answer that question, Commissioner Birdwell, it is counted in here currently.
Right. I just wanted in the future situations like that. Because this is one of the first that I've seen where we actually had an FTE review. Normally, we'd only do this at a time of crisis. You know, that's something reduction like Harris County's going through right now, for whatever reason, they're in reduction. FTEs, part-time. And this is interesting. So I appreciate the fact that you said that during the budgeting process, you meet with the elected directors, appointed, whatever, and ask the questions related to staffing and staffing needs, or where rarely we think we get the overstaffing condition brought to attention, but without a placeholder.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree?
I agree.
All right, no further questions.
This report is something fairly new in BSNA, so I did speak to them. It wasn't available up until about 2021. So
Angie House and I will be taking some training to further utilize this too, but it's a good tool to have.
Chair, I have another question. Where, do you have one of these you're gonna be developing for part-time? that shows
Developing
that
for part-time, so part-time are counted on here, it says not full-time. And I believe, the idea is, so, let me look at it.
Part-time is counted on this list?
Mhm.
In the column under status, it says full-time or non-full.
No, not full.
Yeah, so the first one, the first column, if you look at animal control, there's 2 positions, not full-time.
Got it. Okay, I see, I missed that. And so this is comprehensive, this is the staffing plan as of the moment in time. Part-time.
So actually, I thought it was good information, so prior to last week, I didn't know how many.
Any questions?
Any more questions for Sean?
No question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil, is this something that you need officially adopted, or is it for informational purposes only?
I would like the board to get preliminary approval, because that gives me, license to go ahead and cost out into the budget. Without doing that, I don't know what the total impact on the budget is.
Do you want to put this as a motion to do this, or do you want to see what it is?
That probably, one recommendation would be a motion.
That's what I'm thinking, maybe, be clear.
Thursday's agenda, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, that takes us to the new business. Move on to the old business. We'll go with number 1, the status update on forming a possible public-private partnership to enhance our recycling efforts. Like Miller, Director, Recycling.
Thank you, Commissioners. I think I will let Commissioner Luce go first, and I'll be happy to answer any questions there.
Well, we met with them last week, and, they would like to know where we're at. They were on the assumption that this board told the controller to, move forward, and that has not happened. And they would like to see, if we're still interested. If we're not, then they're wasting their time. This is not costing the county any money. They want to see if, we're still interested, so, am I right in saying that, Mike?
Yes. Yeah, they're frustrated. They want to move forward, but they're not seeing much from us that they did. Our attorney did, reach back, well, not reach out to them, did review their contract. There were some items that they wanted to bring back. They did supply most of it, other than their tax returns and references, I believe it was. But they feel that the county's looking at them as scam artists, and they wanted to reassure us at this meeting that they're not scam artists. But they are a little frustrated. As Commissioner Luce said, they want to know if the county's still interested in pursuing this or not. Just as a little refresher, the board back in April did give us permission to work with them, myself and the controller, to draft a contract that would just be an agreement to get details of the plan. Not to do the plan or a partnership, to get all the details, all the numbers, facts, figures, and then put it together as a package and then bring it back to you as a board for your approval to then form a partnership or whatever it turns out to be. So right now, we're still just trying to get the agreement together to work on the details. They want to get into the county financials, we want to get into their financials, all the details. So they're looking for the board's decision if they still want to move forward with this project or not.
I'll open it up to the board for anybody who's got any question. Like, I remember, back in that meeting back there, and we did start that process, did we, at one time, and then,
Well, we had a meeting with Neil. We introduced the US Eagle Cycle Neil. And Neil directed them to provide us with an agreement, in which they did.
and that agreement has went back to the attorneys, and it's never came back to the board.
Well, it went to the attorneys. The attorneys have, obviously, they had some concerns that they wanted answered. Like I said, they did provide some answers, but they didn't provide all of it. So that's where we're at this point. And to be fair, the contract was definitely one-sided to them, because they wrote it. So, obviously, we need to have some protections in there for the county. But it hasn't gone back to the attorney.
And they're putting their own money into it. They're not asking the county for it.
Attorney Cortez, Mike, some questions.
Yeah.
What's in it for the county?
Well, the initial part of it is that we would be able to become a larger facility, be able to start taking more material. The end goal will be the millage would hopefully go away, save taxpayers some money. We would become all services as far as waste and recycling. We would like to be able to handle all the recycling, all the trash service, all of it. That's the grand plan in the end. The big point for me is that the recycling committee and myself have always wanted to be larger. We wanted to be like the hub of the thumb where all the recycling would come through us instead of going out to other facilities. And that funding or that revenue would stay within this county to help our program grow. With this, all these new recycling laws that are coming out and partnering with the other counties, we can see right now that's going to be beneficial. Huron County wants to work with us as far as us doing some recycling for them. Lapeer County is the same. They would like to partner with us and have us, when I say us, Tuscola County, provide recycling services for them as far as drop-off services. So I can see that, we are going to need, initially we're going to need some more equipment. But the real benefit I see is that this company coming in will provide capital for us to grow, and hopefully in a period of time, the millage will go. That has been the goal of the recycling committee as far back as we've talked, is we'd love to see that millage go away and this program be self-funded, that we wouldn't have to go for a millage. So, is that possible? I believe so. I mean, the material is there. It's only going to get larger as the state keeps pushing it. So I think we're at an absolute perfect time to look at something like this.
Okay, what's in it for them?
Well, what's in it for them is that they get to partner with us, that they will be able to show, quite frankly, as they talked about it at a committee meeting, is that they're under a investor's visa. So they have to show proof that they're actually doing work within the country. So this would be an opportunity for them to do that. And not only for them, but for us, as they talked about, is that any revenue, obviously profit would go back to them and to us in the county. How that will look, I don't know. That would be all in the details that hopefully we get to look at. But the major thing for them is that they're basically putting together a business that they can go back to their immigration and prove that they're actually doing something here in this county that will help them stay in the country. Yeah.
I guess that gives us an idea of why the aggressiveness from the third party coming into account. All right, set that aside. Where else in Michigan, and this is a question that was asked earlier to them, are they, some other county has their services engaged? And they couldn't come up with any.
I don't believe they have any services in Michigan that they have engaged in a contract. I know they've talked with Saginaw, they looked at buying a building in Saginaw, but unfortunately it caught on fire, so that deal fell through. But I don't believe that they have any, that they could come to you and say that we have this township or county under contract.
All right, so that still stays the same. How about out of state?
Again, I don't know. They have worked with a township or county in, I believe it's Indiana. And they're working with some business just recently in Tennessee, plastics recycling facility down there. I can't answer that question.
All right, so it appears they have no base in Michigan. They have probably no base anywhere else. They're under a visa mandate. They have to show something or there's a consequence to it. What concerns me, Mike, it still concerns me, and maybe Commissioner Lutz can explain out of it, is when you say it could replace the millage and it could provide funding, and you talk about we'll have to have more equipment, and you mentioned that the advantage to the counties that would be growing and recycling, becoming a leader in the area or the 3 regions or whatever. There's nothing other than discussion or to base that up in terms of, all right, based on the recycling mix that we have, what's the potential of revenue, how we're going to get this revenue. And there are no agreements, of course, because that's why it's hard to position one to enter a county of any agreement or even a verbal acknowledgement, because there seems to be so many unanswered questions financially, whether, and nobody else is coming in as a competitor at this point. It just seems a bit of a stretch to be the first, to expose the county to something unknown, and to have one of the bases is it could provide enough funding to do recycling millage, let alone, because we have three other, right, counties that are signed up for this with their own needs. So how would you convince the board that this is a financially suitable endeavor to even consider at this point? Because normally we would not, as a board, even consider it, because there's nothing that other than discussion and somewhat, seems like they have a little animosity because of our slowness. So that date was getting closer for the reset. But they're not picking up anybody else either. And have you discussed this with, by chance, with Saginaw? Anyone in Saginaw?
I have not.
So we would think we'd do some of the groundwork on that. And if they were serious, I think they would have been in here with some financial projections. I don't have a clue. Based on the volume of recyclable materials and the value of it that would compensate, cover the costs, which is no cost to the county. Am I the only one that asked this question?
Well, again, I would like to go back and talk and address your comment on aggressiveness. I don't think they're being aggressive. I think they're being aggressive right now because, we've been talking, when I say we, I mean myself, and I've been talking to them for over a year and a half to get to this point of bringing it to you. So I think that, I don't know when the visa runs out, I can't answer. But I do know they're frustrated because they've spent a year and a half working with me and then since April to get an agreement with you. And we really haven't. They expected we'd have the agreement in place and we'd already be working together to get a program together. Yes, I think that this would probably be their first endeavor in the United States. I don't know. I know they're working on other things. But I do know Stefan has got over 40 years of experience in Europe. He had his own recycling business. I believe that he's very well versed in the industry. To answer your question on financials and what's out there and what they think they can bring in, as they said at the Village Grounds meeting, they've done their own study to see if it's viable. And Astrid has said if they didn't think they could do it here, they wouldn't be putting all their time and effort to try to do it. But as they said at the Village Grounds Committee, they don't want to put all their cards out on the table because other people are listening and can see in line. So that's why they want to get just this agreement to get into the details. Put all of that together in the package for you, all the financials, what the projections are, who's responsible for what, how does the funding work, who pays for what, who's responsible, who owns what. All of that needs to be figured out, put in a package, and then brought back to this board so that you can see all of that and then make a decision. Again, we're not asking for you to say, yes, we want to form this partnership and we want to do this project 100%. All you're saying, all we're asking for today, well, I mean, you already gave us approval in April, but we want to reaffirm that you're willing to at least entertain agreement that would say, yes, Mike, Neil, Tuscola County Recycling, US EcoCycle, sit down together, bring us an agreement just to work out all these details so we can see what this project will look like and what it'll cost each party, if anything, for us, which right now they're saying they don't want any county money to do this. So that's what I'm here to argue for, is that I would at least like to see if it's viable. I think that it is. I'm pretty well versed in what's out there in the county. I mean, you can drive around a lot of places that have curbside recycling, and I can tell you there's a lot of recyclables that sit out there in the trash that we could be picking up. There's a lot of commercial businesses that we could be picking up. But we don't have the capital to build that facility or that equipment to start doing that. But I think I would like to see us at least entertain the idea and have them work with us and see. I mean, I have no issue with our attorneys checking them out. I have no issue with that at all, because I don't believe they're trying to scam us out of any money. I think they're honest in their endeavor here, but I could be wrong. But I feel that, I've put a lot of time into this, and I'd like to at least see the board reaffirm that they would at least like to see if this is a viable plan.
Chairman, I have a couple more questions. Mike, the aggressiveness was based on the minutes that were taken by the clerk. You can read it, and you can read them and post them here, but you'll read that they were frustrated with us. Yes. Secondly, it sounds like a grand plan, but on the other hand, this is the business that the county wants to go in full scale. That's a question. And I'm not so sure that's the way you describe it, is that's what we want to do. I don't know, that's up to a lot of board members of this board. But on top of all of this, the board's already given a go-ahead for this initial phase, and you're asking for reaffirming, and I find that mysterious. Now, I say that because also, the legal has reviewed the contract and came back with requests, which you very much said was not completely brought forward by this company, which you would think if it was very interested in this county, that would have been done long ago. How do you explain that?
I can explain that because I asked them about it, and they wanted to have a Village and Grounds meeting before they would provide the financials to see if the county is actually really interested. based on the attorney's comments in, help me out here, Commissioner. I'm asking for the reaffirmation, because that is what they came to us for at this meeting, is the county really serious about it?
And I don't think it's gonna hurt to just look at it. What's it gonna hurt to look? All you can say is, no, this ain't gonna work for us. But the way it is right now, we don't know nothing. So I think if we go ahead, have our attorney look at it, bring it back to this board, look at it, and we'll say, hey, yeah, it's a good deal, or hey, it's not for us. But just to go back and forth, we can do this all day. It's not solving the problem here. I mean, let's move on. Let's either it is or it ain't.
So does our attorney then have the contract that we told you to go put together and bring it back to the board?
Yes.
So that would be it. It's not that, did we put our input into it, or did
We have not put our input.
So it was just something they come up with, but
Right, so the contract was sent to the attorney sent back, their concerns and what they want. I believe everything was answered other than their tax returns and references.
so
They
everything.
said they would answer those after they met with us to make sure that we really wanted to continue.
So everything that we asked for basically is done, it just hasn't come back to this board. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think the contract that they submitted, I mean, I have no problem with getting that contract for your review, but it is one-sided. But the contract needs to be, like a better term, the county needs to make their counter offer. Hey, okay, here's our version of your contract, this is what we need in that to make it agreeable to us.
So let me add a couple things. So they sent us an agreement, asked permission for you, Chairman Vaughn, to have it reviewed by our attorney. They did. They came back with a number of items, which we sent back to this proposed company. So they haven't responded completely on that. I will tell you that in college, I took a purchasing management class. And one of the things when you're considering a vendor that's going to have a significant impact on your operations, you want to find out from them if they're able to perform. One of those things you do, you ask for audited financial statements. If they don't have audited financial statements, you ask for tax returns, you make site visits. So those are the areas we're trying to do at this point, so.
And
Yeah.
I don't think they have a problem with that. They just don't want laundry all over this, you know, they have a business, they don't want it laundry all over. I think that if it was took them back to our attorney with their financials, I don't think they have a problem with that. Not right, we'll say that.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But I guess they're just saying, if we're gonna do that, we want this board to say, hey, yeah, we are interested in looking at it for no commitment.
And then,
They want us to know that we're,
and then I think that this board would need to, as I said, do a counter offer. Hey, we like this part, we don't like this part, we need this in there, or our attorney needs to, add. We need to send them something back so they can look at it too, so we can finalize it so we can move forward. But if it sounds like you're still interested, I will, if that is the case, I will reach out to them and ask them to provide that rest of that information to our attorney with their tax returns.
I think that's where it should go. I think it should go back to our attorney.
Chairman Vaughn, I have a question.
yes.
One thing I haven't heard so far is the inclusion of the other two counties in this. Have they been?
Again, this is two separate things. The other counties have nothing to do with what we're trying to do here today. All we're trying to do here today is for Tuscola County, and just to make our facility larger.
Isn't there recycling coming to Tuscola County?
No. We would like the recycling to come to this county. Now, to say, caveat that Huron up here would like us to do some recycling services for them. Under the new law, you have to have so many drop sites per 10,000 residents. They would like us to provide those services for them. So that part would be coming. in the end, I mean, yes, we would, you know, if we were able to make this work and we grow, yeah, we would love to be able to take other people's recycling.
It just seems odd to me that it wouldn't be, they'd have a heads up, they were thinking about this. This is what it would, just as you've explained to us, this is what it would mean to the region. It's odd.
Well, see, right now, your recycling in the thumb goes, there's basically 3 places it goes. It either goes, Port Huron, Saginaw, or Flint. Those are the 3 areas that have large recycling facilities. If we were able to have one of our own in the thumb, they believe, and I do too, that some of these companies may not drive all the way to Saginaw or Huron, and might just come to Tuscola to have them recycled here.
So does this mean that they set up entity here, or do you ship somewhere?
Well, if we were to form a partnership, they would, again, this is part of the details, but the envision is that they would build a facility with us on our property at where our recycling is currently. We would basically do what we're doing now. We would process it all and get it ready to ship out to mills. It would just be on a larger scale with more material.
And the goal is to have this be the hub of the thumb for recycling.
So, I guess, does board want, at least, do we want to move forward and look at the material that we asked for back in April, really? Where we can look at everything and see exactly,
That's what I would like.
you know,
I don't have a problem with that.
Well, that can't be done until Thursday. We can't give you a go-ahead.
we already gave a go ahead back in April.
I mentioned it earlier, but it didn't seem to have any effectivity.
I understand, because I think it just kind of got dropped by the wayside.
Right, no, I'm only, it's back on an update, and this update, they came to us Thursday, asking, are we still interested in moving forward? That's why, I mean, I understand what you did in April. They wanted to make sure that that's what you still want to do before they keep moving forward themselves, or providing that this is financial.
So Commissioner Vaughn, another Chairman Vaughn question. They came to us, or did we reach out to them?
When they got the letter from the attorney, they sent back some of the information, and when I asked them about why they didn't provide their tax returns, they said they'd like to have a meeting with the Buildings and Grounds Committee to discuss it. So yes, they did reach out to me to set up a meeting with the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
No further questions.
Objections from the board then? Just continue to get us information that we asked for, and let us get.
I'll reach out to them today and ask them to provide that to the attorney.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 2 under old business. Discussion of board of Commissioner rules. Board rules of order on fire.
Thank you, Chairman. I had this put on, I guess, the last time in the sense that we were somewhat in a debate. And not to reiterate all the things that was mentioned, in looking at Tuscola County's board rules, I did state in the last 20 years, even though they've been approved every time we've had an election of board, new board, they've been very rarely reviewed. And if they were reviewed, it was just particular areas. So interesting enough, I asked each of the commissioners here to review Lapeers. And from what, if you've done that, you'll see that in their 5.1, which is about 6 sentences, they pretty much covered 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 with the Robert's Rules of Order. Now, I think in talking to Mac on this, they've not seen anything like this, and they doubt if they will see it in the 83 counties. And I just want to reflect back to those who were here during the virtual meetings. We did have, of all the years, which I was chair of all the years that we have been together as a board, never was the organizational rules applied, very rarely. But in that particular case, we did under virtual meetings have an individual who was showing inappropriate material, we would say at that time. And we do have a legal opinion on that in terms of, which superseded some of this, in terms of what it would take to remove the process, and that was in the gallery. So I didn't look it up, I'm sure I've got it somewhere. If I don't, that proverbial file that was supposed to have been kept of all the legal opinions probably would have had it in it. So at that particular time, we had two commissioners who wanted to review them. And I have no issue with asking for a change. I mean, they ought to be reviewed again sometime because they are, if you read the rest of them, they are somewhat dated, archaic. And this is a board you want the public to trust, and I can't imagine, in a sense that based on the 20 years, 19 3/4 now, we have not used these rules on anyone that's been presented to us. So I want to raise that caution as I did before. So is there any response to the peer rules? Are you satisfied with the current board rules? Asking the board.
I'll let the other move the board in this discussion.
Commissioner Barlow, these rules that we have in front of us, since I wasn't on, how did that procedure go? Who drafted those? Can you answer that for me?
The current rules of the board,
Yes, sir.
they have been in existence for almost 20 years that I've been on the board. They have changed very little. Matter of fact, the only change that I recall that was ever made, maybe there was one related to public opinion in the beginning, just to be on agenda items. That was one. But there was someone identified there was a change in 21 amendment, Chairman Vaughn, at that time. But to answer your question, they have just been on paper all those years. And when we had a organizational meeting, this is one of the agenda items we would look at. And as you know, new commissioners coming in, and just looked at it and passed it. So it was never effective. I think the fact that even if they were as is, the caution I would have is based on the legal opinion that was given on how to remove someone virtually at that time. And that was quite a process, if you remember. But anyway, it's not, but the point is, it's probably something that the board should, in the future, take a look at and shorten up. We do want this board to be able, we do want the public to be able to address this board without fear. We rarely have anybody come in here with a bad attitude or an objective. Normally the chair will diffuse that in terms of basically just the board listens to what's being said. So that's a long version of answering your question. We've been here a long time.
Okay, so it seems like we just kind of rubber stamped it every year.
Pretty much.
Okay. So if we want to change, what's the procedure? I mean, we approved these February 9th of 2023, which I was on the board at that time. I guess I'm just asking the question, if a board member wants something changed, how do we go about that? And if not, we stick to this until we adopt it and make that change if the board's in agreement.
Well, in a sense, I think what you're saying, after the first year, we had an organization meeting.
Right.
This should be brought up,
Yeah.
looked at different aspects of it, whatever. A lot of that stuff is like, even in the fair conference, it says, refer to Robert Rules of Order. Well, a lot of that stuff is Robert Rules of Order, how obedience to be conducted. I don't recall, I didn't say anything about anybody that's addressed the board out there. not allowing anybody to address the board, I don't understand that, but, to ask them, but, yeah, that's what it should be looked at. I mean, when you do organization meetings, everything, and, well, okay, and it can be looked at before that if the board chooses, it doesn't bother me. Whatever, you know.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to be around for 50 years. That's my opinion.
Mine as well.
Chairman, I'd only, if I may speak.
Yeah.
Really interject that you might want to consider it before the end of the first of the year, because the fact is it takes, it's a review process.
Yeah.
I think, to the answer, Commissioner Cook, is that I think one of the areas, if we were serious about reviewing these and updating them, two things need to occur. One, you need to look at some other counties and see what they're using, just as a prerequisite. And the second, probably most important, to each one do their own DACting and redacting, and then come together at some point. But I would suggest that the board consider getting engaged, that's going to happen before the first of the year. Because at the first of the year, you'll be engaged to do something like that. It may take 3 months.
So in 2021, was that which commissioner, or did the whole board go through these rules, or just one commissioner went through them, a couple, or how'd that work?
Well, I could defer to the clerk, but typically they're laid out in front of you in a packet, and you look at them, and it comes up on the agenda, and we approve it if you look back in the organizational meetings. Am I correct? I don't.
In the past, if I may, Chairman, all right, in the past, we have looked at the presentation of them. They are presented at your organizational meeting. In the past, in 2021, if that's the one that you're referencing to, if I recall, I believe we had 1 or 2 commissioners questioning a few languages, as well as our current controller administrator wanted a couple changes in the 22, I believe is where that was presented. And then those were all brought forward. And so I don't believe at that time there was a specific committee made. I believe it was up to each commissioner to review those rules and make their changes presented to the board as a recommendation.
So what, I speak?
Yeah.
So the last time any changes were made was 2021?
23.
23. I believe the changes were presented in 22 with the adoption in 23 at the onset of your new term. That's usually when we are looking at the board rules, is at the onset of each new term. Or, you know, because, and that part has not been rewritten with your term switching from 2 years to 4 years. The law that references your organizational meeting is set that it must happen XXX, and that has not been updated to reflect your new 4-year term length. So at this point, we'll still be holding those organizational meetings. And I believe that we'll have that on the schedule, and that'll be the first part of January.
And if the board stayed the same, we could do that in December also.
Well, you're gonna be into new terms, so that in the language, unless it has changed, I would want to double check that. In the past, if your board members are retained, you can do that into the December. But you would be we would be holding an organizational meeting on Thursday, January 2nd. We have to do it within 72 hours of New Year's Day.
Chairman, can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as I'm concerned, either way, I'm not committed to anything at this point other than just to consider start a revision, because anything like this, it's sort of like the county policy. It's been reviewed for years and never completed, and we have a couple, as I mentioned before, Commissioner used to herald that, so it takes a while.
So I guess everybody just start looking at them, look at different ones, get ideas together if you want, if there's something that you want to change or something like that. Look at Robert Rules of Order, whenever first Robert Rules of Order, check that out and get ready for whenever we want to have this discussion. This will be in December or 1st of January. And, because like you said, it'll take some time to look at different ones and study the resolution.
And I believe once we get some changes together, it would always be wise to take this to legal counsel as well, to verify that your changes, just because another county may have it in their board rules, does not make it correct. And I always would refer to your legal counsel reviewing that before you actually adopt.
That's why I said, we refer back to Robert Rules of Order about some of this stuff too, because some of the stuff that is in there is from Robert Rules of Order.
Some of it is correct.
It's where it comes from,
Yeah.
so.
It is, Chairman.
But, so let's start that process. Okay, Commissioner, we'll move on. Move on to number 3 on the old business, evaluation and update on control administrator.
Mr. Chairman, may I be excused for this? We talk clearly.
Yeah, I guess you can do this usually.
I'll be in the balance.
I thought the last thing I remember is we were gonna get some paperwork to look at, not to.
Yeah, that's basically what this was about, it wasn't nothing but.
Yeah, I just, I don't know why you want to leave it, just, we want to get the paperwork to look at, so each commissioner can look at this. I haven't heard anything more about it, that's why I want to bring it back up.
That's basically what it was.
Right, so we have paperwork we can look at, or is there anything been?
We instructed the HR department to get us this stuff put together for this meeting. And that's why this was brought up. It was nothing for Leon Kennedy. We were talking anything else, but go ahead, Shelley.
I understand the confusion though, because I was confused when we added it, so.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that, it wasn't clear where your direction was.
This is where the direction was, just get the update from.
Yeah. Sure.
Good morning again. So I missed the whole conversation. I just asked the administrator controller if I should come in here and he said sure. So, and I believe you're discussing the evaluation.
Yeah.
The last notes I have for August 26th were that a package was requested, but then it was never noted in any minutes or requested. So I have the packages. So I don't know where you want me to go from here because I believe the digital copy did not come through and then there was some pages that were not included. So that's where I'm at. I have them.
So I guess where we want to go from here is, you got enough, just hand them out to the board,
I do. I prepared them because I thought that would be,
and we can just look at them, again, we can bring this up at a later date, once the board has a chance to review these questions or whatever, I mean, how do you want to move forward with this?
I made a copy, one for the clerk, one for each of you, and then one for the administrator controller.
Sure, that's what I would do.
I thought that's where we were last time.
Okay, let's just do that,
Is it okay if I go meet them?
yes, a few of these, and you can tell, Neil, you come back into this, is, we were, Neil didn't have need to leave the room, kind of caught by surprise when they asked me, but,
Okay. I will get them in hand.
Okay.
something down the road, I think, we'll look at it, and we'll bring up again a couple weeks, if that's good, the whole meeting for discussion. You want to move forward with that? Or is that okay by the commissioners that way? And we've got package to look at it. It's good, the whole, we'll put it on the agenda for discussion.
Next committee of the whole?
Yep,
Thank you.
okay. Let's move on to finance and technology, and I'll turn over to Commissioner Young. I know Commissioner Barlow had something he wanted to add to it, so I'll turn over to Commissioner Young.
Okay, and the primary finance and technology, I don't see the list. Okay, ongoing other finance.
Commissioner Barlow added.
Commissioner Barlow added an item to that.
And the matter was named.
I thought you were getting other finance.
Under August finance.
Well, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Young, for remembering. I added the August 31st financials, and one of the, if you've had an opportunity to look at them, I know we all have our areas that we sort of scan to see where we're at and what's going on, and caught my interest and mainly my questions are for Neil, but anyone can ask or chip in. It's all right with the chair. And Neil, I didn't look at these until late Friday, so otherwise I would have called and say, how do you, as I normally do, what does this mean? But anyway, I'm looking at the, not the special, but the financial report. I had this assumption that we have transfers in at some point. And the reason I'm asking that is because on page 46 of 46, when you get down to the bottom of the revenues and expenditures, we had revenues of 2.3, but we had expenditures come in at 5.2, which seemed like a lot. And we ended up with the net being a negative 295,940. I know this is just a snapshot of time and funds are transferred from other accounts at certain times, but is that what it is? Is it's prior, when you publish the August financials, it's prior to the transfer ins to different accounts in other words, you wouldn't see a negative.
So are you looking at the general fund?
Yes, I am, page 46 of 46, if you want to bring it up.
Well, I didn't put any financials in this report. So you must have been looking at what Renee does.
With the monthly that she sends out to the departments. That's why I just said, Ian,
So let me add, when I'm thinking my process is here, is, so financial statements are feedback. So we're giving the elected officials and department heads the opportunity to review the financial statements, and then if they see anything wrong, to get back to us. Then we can make some changes. And then me issuing to the board of commissioners at the second meeting of the month, what I feel are the financial statements, the final ones for you to observe. So to answer your question on the general fund, there is a schedule, and quarterly transfers are made. Debbie kind of manages that process and makes the journal entry to record the transfers.
So Neil, with that explanation, so it's really a pro forma, not that I didn't think it was, it's just that the 5 million caught my interest in expenditures. It seemed, multiply that times 12, if that was an average, that's $60 million, but that came from somewhere. But the reality of this is I'm in a department, and I'll take the department of 911, which is in the special financials. It came up, in revenue of 575,000, it came up with expenses of 420, and they ended up with a positive cash of 154,695. So if I'm out there in the department, the usage of this financial report really has nothing to do with revenue. I can look at it. I can look at the bottom line like I am now, like maybe on 911 when I saw the 154, I thought, well, that doesn't sound right. What happened? But basically, what do they use it for? They use it just to compare, to review their expenses?
Well, they should be comparing the year-to-date expenditures to the amended budget.
Does anyone do that?
Yes.
you do that.
Sure, you always look at your budget, make sure you're where you're at.
Well,
I do.
I didn't ask for a
All my
volunteer.
mail,
All right, we'll put that down. Mike looks at his. I'm just curious.
I'm curious too. So, Tyler, do you look at those monthly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Bob, do you?
I did the same thing, hopefully.
John?
Oh,
Okay.
But they're in positive about it. I mean, the road patrol and things like, I look at that, I go scanning for anything in the negative, trying to figure out what maybe had happened. I didn't go back to July to check to see how, that takes, you become a financial analyst at that point. But from a metric standpoint, as you said, you produce the finals mid-month. This caught my eye. One of the relevant features that I saw on this, which is, I know we talked about this extensively in budgeting, was the contingency fund as 104,000 in there. All right, so in my mind, 104,000, it's still there, if that's true. And I look for as the discussion at the board level has had, the GSP funds, the 2.3, 2 point whatever it is, I look for that relative to what's in the general fund, because I know that that's the only thing keeping us out of the red. And I'll challenge anybody to show me that's not true, but I think Clay had even mentioned we were going to be in the red just based on capital. So from a commissioner standpoint, I just encourage everyone maybe just to peruse. It's a long report, it's 64 pages. And I think one of the things that I would like, if other board members would like them as well, I'd like a list of the department and name. Here's the department, here's the number. The department number, like 911, or the jump, I don't have that in front of me, but it'll give a department number, or even a fund number, because when you're going through 64 pages of detail, it's easier to look for a department number than I would say. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because you gotta have some reference, otherwise you're flipping back and forth between the lines. And then the board, if they have their focus, I just chose 911 because of the pending financial questions that you sort of get a relative sense of how well we're doing. I also looked at your 5-year projection. I mean, I looked at that relatively speaking. That made me feel better, of course, because that's a positive. Right?
When I use the word preliminary.
Okay, so even though that 5-year projection that you handed out, which I have here, that's preliminary. I mean, that's
I have to explain to the board of commissioners, at least that this is what I plan to do as we go through the budget process.
And I would keep that one handy, because it is a feel-good report right now, when you're looking at negative numbers. Yeah, so, I encourage the board members to, if you don't have a copy of it that Neil gave out, doesn't have a date, May 7th. That's a good one to keep handy. All right, so the other question that relates to this is I'm going through the webpage, the financials, and I look over at the metrics. The metric link and the metrics are from 2021. I know we've had this discussion on the board level, but there's not a lot of information there that's relevant today other than the template that was used back when we were mandated to do the metrics for the state. And I was thinking that perhaps, Neil, you want to have that, not that you're ready to post metrics yet, because you haven't, as I understand, gotten that far. But at least we ought to put something in there that would show the public who happen to click on it that we're cognizant that it's 21. Or some kind of message that it would be, in process of being updated, So I'm just encouraging to do that.
So when you say metric, is that the dashboard?
Dashboard. Sorry about that. Which would be very beneficial. in terms of the dashboard, especially when it comes to the general fund and contingency and spend rate, which you sort of capture the projections of the 5-year plan. Unless anyone has any questions, Chairman, that was basically trying to get a grasp on how the departments are using these, and respective that if you were in the negative, I would think you'd be raising your hand and saying, okay, what do you mean I'm in the negative? But if you're in the positive, in terms of revenue at the end or expenditures, I can understand you just review it.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to see pies and charts, like we used to get. That was a pretty easy way to, some of this stuff. When Clay was here, she'd do, charts and pie and see where we're at for some of this. Just request.
Chairman, what areas do you think?
Well, like the general fund, this kind of stuff, she's always come through there and put a chart, this is what we did 20, 22, 23. You always seen the chart there. And I always appreciated that.
The chair, I would like to see the chart that has expenditures and revenue next 5 years, and when the expenditures are gonna outpace the revenue, if it ever does. I know Mike Open did this for a long time.
I guess that's where I'm going with that.
It's a graph.
It's a graph. So we can kind of see where we're at in a 5-year.
Well, not only that, if you're, I'm gonna say, watching this in Zoom, you see that chart, it's kind of self-explanatory.
Yes.
So at one point, they're gonna cross less revenue, more expenses. And then the windmills depreciate, it's getting close right now.
I have no further thoughts. I just trying to get some relevancy on the numbers and what it was used for, because in my earlier days, I would look at this and I would definitely know what I wanted to look at. And if it was negative, I would be raising flags somewhere. And I didn't know, of all the years we've been publishing these, that have been English publishers, what kind of feedback you've gotten in the 4 short months you've gotten. They're actually reviewing these and questioning it, and I'm hoping that's happening, because that's what's being published for, correct? No further.
Okay, I have something under, I'm doing other finances. If you look at the MAC September 6th briefing, you see Tuscola County, we're gonna get $156,000 more revenue sharing in 2025 versus 2024. Just FYI.
What was it about,
156,000?
$156,000.
I mean, it's that inverse calculation of the tax base. We just went through that Friday.
I don't want to spend it right now, but it's coming. Chief Information Officer, anything update?
A few updates real quick. Your recordings are now live. We started with our first one with the Buildings and Grounds Committee. There's a quick link down here, the YouTube link that will take you to our channel. And there's our first video that's already on there. This video will be posted in about 15 minutes after the meeting. Pending, you don't have to edit anything out or time delays or anything like that. We do have the issue with virtual attendance and closed sessions solved. So we can have closed sessions now remotely attended if needed. Other than that, constantly working with the clerk and the election security coming up, reviewing everything. There's gonna be more audits and things coming that we have to comply with, but everything's going smooth so far. There's no questions for me, that's it.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So how do we know your closed session, you got somebody virtual, how do you know that they're.
So I have a remote participant in my office, at least always one, that messages me if we're clear or not. And the remote participant will be handled by this account, on the screen you see here, not by the meeting hour. So the meeting hour will just be blank, will be not invited to the closed session, but everybody else will be invited to closed session. And I'll have a confirmation from outside of this room that nothing is being broadcast. And the same as always, we have that fail safe over there just in case, we're never allowed to start until I get that confirmation. But I guess I can't say I allow it, I never advise.
So I have, Mr. Chair.
I just have a quick question for you. When you say you can remote in the closed session, if we have our attorneys remote,
Yeah.
what did you mean by that?
Previously, I didn't have a plan for keeping them separate from recorded meetings.
I see what you're saying.
Now we've worked out the details of how we would keep them separate, and it's able to do that without going on the public record.
Thank you.
We're on building grounds. Mr. Cook, anything on building grounds?
No, other than the recycle thing, Director Miller.
I have a couple of things.
Okay.
Just wanted to help you.
I'm here too. I'm here too, Mikey.
All right, I'd like to update you on the furniture. We are meeting 10 o'clock on Wednesday with the furniture people, the designer. And we hopefully get all of our colors and patterns and whatever figured out, found out Friday. The company that we're buying the furniture for is having a price increase October 1st, so we need to get it all wrapped up before then. Which brings me to my next update. I am meeting with the builder for the project across the street tomorrow at 10 o'clock to get an update. I do not believe that they are going to be done and ready for us in October, which may mean we may need to store the furniture if it comes before the project's done. And if I have to rent a box or something, I will, because I don't want to pay more for the furniture. So I just wanted
I know there's one box there.
hopefully we don't have
Just
to.
get back to me.
But just wanted to let you know that we need to get the furniture wrapped up by the end of the month, so we don't increase the price increase. And then Thursday, I might be able, if you'd like, to give you an update on the building across the street. Okay?
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director Miller. Nothing further, sir.
Just one comment, so we put a deposit on for our furniture, $90,000 or so. So I don't know if we have that, requirement to get them back, or whether that was committed at the same price.
Well, they did tell me there was a price increase. I guess hopefully we don't have to cross that bridge, we can get it done.
Turn over to Mr. Bible, personnel.
Thank you, Chairman Vaughn. The first item on the agenda is new hire request for animal control, which is Tyler Wright.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So, here to talk to you today about a potential employee restructure in the animal control department. As of right now, animal control employees, 2 full-time animal control officers, 2 part-time kennel attendants, and myself, a field director. I'd like to, with your approval, of course, eliminate one of the part-time kennel attendant positions and move our 1 part-time kennel attendant that we currently have hired into a full-time equivalent position.
Full-time what?
Full-time equivalent. So he's a part-time, 29 hours a week is what he's approved for. I'd like to eliminate the vacant kennel attendant position that we have open right now currently, and not go forward with the new hire process on that, and just move him to a full-time position. The goal here is to reduce our turnover rate for our part-time position. On average, since I've been here, since 2018, we've hired a new kennel attendant about every 6 months. So obviously with that, you're going through covering shifts by animal control officers that get paid a higher rate. Overtime is included with the new hire, and then for them to turn around and quit in 6 months or so, give or take. It seems like, the position is not desired that much, at 29 hours a week at their starting rate of $16 an hour. It's tough to live off nowadays. So, we have a great staff right now. Our one kennel attendant that we have employed is a very hard worker. He's actually going through training, wants to make a career in animal control, and we'd like to, try and keep him, by making him full-time. Did look at the numbers. The bottom line here, if we were to just stay with what we're at right now with 2 part-time kennel attendants, each of them before taxes, and no benefits included, obviously, as a part-timer, the total amount for expenditures between the 2 positions is about $56,500 a year. Moving him full-time with the benefits included in that full-time equivalent position, the adjusted amount would be $62,500. So a little bit of an increase there, but I think that it pays for itself without having to hire, on average, 2 kennel attendants a year.
And potentially a reduction in overtime.
Correct. Any questions or?
Motion on here, that's fine.
Full motion or consent agenda? I'm sorry, I didn't catch your question.
Said that, would be fine.
As a hire, should we do a motion?
It should be a motion.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
All right, number 2, new hire request for the Sheriff's Department. Robert Baxter.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Just looking for you to approve, hiring of Jack Dudzik to fill a vacant full-time road deputy position. His background check, drug tests, and physical have all been completed. He's to start, September 10th at step 1 rate of $25.04 per hour.
Motion on Thursday?
Yeah, please.
Question, Chair. Sure. Did he go through the training? Did we send him through the training or is he coming in?
He's a former state.
Former?
How many positions does that leave open to the
Well, we just had one the other day, so we're down for
Great.
I've got one potentially lined up to go again in January, so unless something else happens, we'll be down 2 for a while.
Any in the academy now? Or?
We have one weekend.
When does that interview look at?
We'll be done first week of December, roughly. And then one starting right after that.
Another one. Any other questions? It's a motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3, the new hire request from the Grain Office. Robert Cantor.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm here today to, you see that letter that I put in the packet with my departure on December 31st. We're trying to start the process a little sooner so there's continuity and training in the drain office so we don't miss a beat going forward. So we'd like to move forward with, right after the election, hopefully we'll be able to hire someone. Dara is the only one running, so obviously she's going to be drain commissioner. And instead of waiting until January 1, we'd like to start the process sooner than that. And we do have funds in our budget to cover this person's wages till the end of the year. So that's the request we're looking to try to do, just to get some cross training and not miss a beat in the drain office. So,
Pleasure of the board.
Motion.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any ongoing other personnel?
But make one more comment real quick. Did forget to mention the effective date requested to move the part-time position to a full-time equivalent. Effective date will be September 14th of 2020. All right, thank you.
Anything else? Being done, back to you, Chairman Warren.
Okay, any other business as necessary?
May Chairman, I had something just to bring up. I was with Steve, permission?
Yeah.
I was with Steve Curry on Wednesday in the meeting, and at that time, he was, among many other things we talked about, including the septic issues and legislation and lame duck. The final end of that conversation was we didn't have anybody coming to the MAC conference from Tuscola County. And I said, well, that's odd because I thought surely that would be happening. So I got a hold of Renee to send out a communication, but Renee got back to me and said we had 3 going. So I'm very pleased with that, especially over the years we've been participating.
Yeah.
And just the reason I'm not going is that I have a Maple Syrup board meeting at the same time and the tour in Charlotte, Michigan, somewhere down that area. So will not be attending. But at any rate, I just wanted to thank everyone, some of you, for attending. Should be interesting. That's
Looking
right.
forward to it. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Any other business necessary? Public comment. Anybody out there that address the board report?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Christy Sutherland, Human Development Commission. I'm here, I just want to say thank you for being passionate with our seniors in the county and putting the millage on the August ballot. I saw that it passed with flying colors. And so I'm here to say thank you for putting that as a priority and making sure that our seniors are taken care of.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you. Yeah.
Is there a list coming down?
Oh, well, there's no waiting list. Nobody's waiting.
We adding more?
But yeah, it is going up a little bit. It's not out of control. But yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment. Any more public comment that wants to address the board? So anything out there, anybody want to address the board out there? Let the record show that public comment was offered, and we did have one participant, so we appreciate that. And with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn the committee will be. Someone support. Move by Commissioner Cook, supported by Commissioner to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting. All in favor? Aye.